Before we start the show today, everyone, myself and everyone here at AFTV would like to send our thoughts and prayers to the family, friends and loved ones of Joey Cassoon, who very tragically passed away recently. He was a massive Arsenal fan, a massive part of the Trinidad and Tobago Arsenal community, and I actually know people who knew him. They described him as living life to the full and someone who was full of adventure and a massive, massive Arsenal fan who loved his club deeply. So from everyone here at AFTV, we want to send our good wishes and our deepest condolences to the friends, families and loved ones of Joey Cassoon. Welcome back to AFTV, everyone. Welcome back to the Tactical Insight Show. I'm here with Graham. It's good to see you, Graham. We have a 4-1 win against Leeds to break down, and it's been a couple of weeks since I've seen you.
It has. And first of all, how was the holiday, mate?
It was good. It was. You know what? I just needed a break. You're going to think I don't have the bottle for a title race. I needed, just before the 10 games of carnage, I just thought, let's get away to the mountains. I went skiing with Emma and her lovely family. I just needed 6 days of mountains, skiing, food, and just staying away from stress, phone down. It was great, and it's great to be back.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful, mate. You know, I think Robbie's playing you too well, James. I mean, the nearest I get to a skiing holiday is a ski yogurt. So, but look, great to have you back today.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
What a great day Saturday. Arsenal responded emphatically to Liverpool's unable to do us a good turn at Manchester City by beating Leeds really well 4-1 after a very shaky start, and we're going to go into the reasons for that today. It was an interesting day Saturday, you know, because I think we're all so invested in our clubs now, invested in Arsenal at the moment and this push for the title. The day began early for most Gooners. You know, I got up to London really early on Saturday. The pubs were absolutely heaving for the early kick-off, Man City v Liverpool. You couldn't get in some pubs, you know. I came down to the Arsenal Tavern just as Liverpool took the lead, and the roar that greeted me, you know, told, you know, everything you needed to know that Liverpool had scored. But when I got into the pub, it became apparent that, you know, Manchester City were it equalised within 5 minutes and were basically dominating them, were going to win the game, and they did win the game. So when myself and a lot of Arsenal fans left that pub, as I'm sure a lot of Arsenal fans left other pubs, and got to the game, I think we were feeling a little bit flat because we were been hoping that Liverpool would do us a good turn, but they didn't. And then when we got into the stadium, I take my seat normally about 2:15 before kick-off, to see that Bukayo Saka wasn't in the team. I'm thinking, God, this day isn't going as well as I would like. And then I watch Leeds in their sort of like drills pre-match. They look really sharp. And then they began the game really well for the first half hour and gave us a real contest for half an hour. But eventually it was the return of Gabriel Jesus that unlocked Leeds. And I know we're going to talk about Jesus' performance today. I thought he was instrumental in getting us over the line and returning the gap now back to 8 points.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We start where we always start, which is the match stats. Here they are, right here. And look, you said you saw Sharoy after the game.
I did, yeah.
And you both described the performance as clinical, and I think this is why. Only 13 shots. We didn't pepper them with the 22, 23, 26. We might have sometimes, but we were clinical, actually, I thought.
Yeah, we were. We only had 5 of our 13 shots on target and we scored 4 goals. That tells you we were efficient and we were clinical. Yeah. And there were issues for that, reasons for that, which we're going to go into. We dominated possession, 2/3 of possession, completed well over double the passes. And our XG, once again, we outscored our XG, 2.9. Leeds, XG only 0.6, but they did offer a real threat, I thought, in transition, particularly in the first half. Yeah,
I completely agree. I'd love to know the XG on that Ben White shot, by the way. I would love to know that. Let's go to the attack stats. 57 final third entries, 37 deep touches. You know, we're outperforming them, these numbers. The field tilt is kind of what you'd expect. Yep. And defensively, you know, we did well as well, you know.
Yeah, okay, I think the passes for defensive action there, really good from us, 7.9.
Actually, that is good.
That is really good, yeah. And Leeds more tackles than us, more interceptions, and more. We obviously have more clearances, but I think the way they defended at times on Saturday, almost like in a 6-3-1, I thought at times, and blocked us in the half spaces. So they had a lot of defending to do, and I thought that in the end we had to find a way to overcome the way Leeds set up. Because Leeds set up in a way which I'm going to explain in this Tactical Insight show, that tried to nullify our 3-2-5 in build-up, which I haven't seen many teams deploy this sort of tactic this season.
Yeah, you did say that, and I think we should explore that probably first thing, because here we are, and what we've done is we've put the Arsenal players in the 3-2-5. By the way I'm seeing John Stones play for Man City, I think Guardiola might be trying to copy a little something from Arteta, but we won't go into that now. Check out Talking Tactics where I explore that a little bit more. But you've got your 3, your 2. You thought there was something very interesting about the role of the central midfielders, Harrison and Christensen, actually a left winger playing in midfield and a right back playing in midfield, and then also the role of the front 3. A lot of players out of positions but expected to do particular roles. Break it down for us.
Yeah, I thought Leeds went in without an actual forward. Bamford, surprisingly for me, was on the bench on Saturday. Both teams set up in a 4-3-3, but I think what Leeds did in their press, they marked us man for man, particularly in midfield. Christensen was man marking Xhaka, Harrison was man marking Odegaard, and I thought the interesting role for me was that of Roca, because he was sort of like dropping into this space here. Arsenal like to play drop Jesus into the middle here, and I thought his role really was to sort of mark whoever dropped into that area. So they went man to man in midfield, and often if Xhaka and Odegaard came up into the half spaces in our 5 lanes of attack, they would come back as well into those spaces. So that gives them like a 6 across the back against our 5 lanes if Jesus was to join the attack. So that was very interesting for me. The interesting thing, man-to-man marking in midfield, Roca operating in this space here. If Trossard and Jesus, and we know Arsenal are very fluid in their movement, Trossard can come in here, Jesus can come over here, Martinelli can come inside, Jesus can go out wide. I think Roca's job really was to patrol this area. So that was one thing that I thought they did really well. They also congested this right-hand side. So if Ben White came up, Ben White would obviously look to come up here. With Saka not here, Trossard can't offer what Saka does with a direct dribble. So they congested this space. Roca would sometimes pull it into here. So they sort of like congested this right-hand side. Trossard sometimes I thought vacated his lane too early. Obviously White was sort of like looking to get on the outside. But Odegaard was really struggling in this area in the first half hour because Leeds were stopping our right-hand side from working up high, and it was the way they congested this side, I thought. And the combinations between White and Saka are not so fluid as they were between Trossard and White, and I thought Trossard sometimes was coming inside. Arsenal like to play these 5 lanes, but sometimes he was vacating his lane, I thought, too early. The other key thing to me was the way that they stopped us in build-up. They stopped us trying to play through the middle.
You know what? We can actually illustrate this. If we just open this back up, where have we got it? Leeds press. Here we go. Because you were saying to me behind the scenes that this front 3 was very interesting. And if we move everyone forward a little bit, just to there. I think the key here is that the way they stopped Thomas Partey and Zinchenko in build-up, or they tried to stop Partey and Zinchenko in build-up, and it involved these 3 front players, Aronson, Summermill, who I thought was really pacey and offered a real threat in the count and transitions, and Sinisterra. These 3 players, they came very narrow at times. A lot of the time, you can move them for me, don't move in there. Well, they probably don't know if they will move.
There we go. The graphic up,
there we go,
but I think what they did was that they would come very narrow. So I think the idea was that when whoever had the ball, if the ball went out to Ben White or if the ball went out to Gabriel.
So let's move it out to Ben White all the way across, and then they would come across there.
So basically that's it. So Somerville would go and engage with Ben White, who had the ball, and then Harrison and Sinisterra would then look to shift across, so to block Zinchenko coming inverted and Partey trying to play through the middle. That's what I thought was the tactic. If the ball went out to Gabriel on the other side, then Sinisterra would then push out to the left-hand side, and Somerville would come across with Aronson. So they were trying to block, I thought, Partey and Zinchenko. Zinchenko when he likes to invert to build up, and Partey playing through the middle. I thought they had these 2 midfielders taking care of our number 8s, Roca dropping into the space, and then they were defending at times in a 6-3-1, looking to play us on the counter-attack. So I thought this is what they did really well for the first half hour, and Arsenal took a long while to work out a way to beat this. And I think what all good teams do is they probe, they look at the opposition, then they work out where the weakness is. And I thought what we identified in that half was Alien as being the weak link on their right-hand side. Jesus was starting to drop out wide in the first half with Martinelli interchanging. And I think what we did then was to beat this man-marking system. It was all about movement, players making runs from deep. All our goals came from late movement from deep areas, pulling markers out of position. And I think Ayling's side was the area that we concentrated on. 3 of the 4 goals came down his side, but gaps between him and the centre half, or him and Christensen, started with Jesus' opening goal. And I think that was the key to unlocking Leeds United on Saturday. Late runs from deep to beat their man marking. But they did really well man marking us for the first half out.
They did, and Arsenal did need to find a solution to this, which we see in the second goal. If we just bring it up now, where is it? Ben White's goal. Because, okay, it's a penalty. It's a lovely bit of magic from Jesus who wins us the penalty, and then we go on and score. But what we've got here is Arsenal really stretching the pitch, because it goes from our widest left winger all the way to our widest right back who's come in, Ben White, to put into the back of the net. But a lot of the things you're talking about, you see in this. You see Christensen keeping an eye there and having to drop into the defence, keeping an eye on Xhaka's run. You've got Harrison, who's at this point is watching Ben White's run to the back post. Trossard, who's the right winger, is actually coming to have, he's making a central run so that the space is there. And you're right, Arsenal, I think Arteta said, just move, just pull them apart. Now that requires a lot of trust on the players. You're saying to the players, I trust you to then, when we lose the ball, be structured enough and know your roles to be able to go and adapt and press and do the right defensive work. But off the ball, it requires a lot of trust as well.
Yeah, I think also that is something they would have worked on training. I think they would have known that Leeds are a man marking team. So I think Arteta would have stressed to the players either pre-match, even at half time, you're going to have to sort of move this team around a bit, and you're going to have to sort of create spaces. You create spaces, markers, by moving markers out of position. And then with late runs into areas, you look to exploit the gaps from moving the markers around. And I think that would have been the message. I think they would have worked on this in training. I think he would have known how Leeds play, because I don't think they changed their system. They do it's like a man.
They've always been a high press.
A man-to-man press. And as you say, you're now going to break down the way they did this in the second goal.
Well, so, Martinelli gets the ball, but what he does really well is he beats Ayling and then finds it, Ben White at the back post. It's a lovely ball. Reminds me of Alexis Sanchez. He used to sort of open his body up and just sort of, what would you call it? It's like a chip cross.
Yeah.
He just does like a flick of the boot just to whip into the back post. Very Alexis Sanchez. But the key bit here for me is, if we just go back a touch more, it's this bit here when he's got Ayling one-on-one and he beats him. There's a little bit of luck, a little ricochet takes him into space. But when you've got players like Martinelli, Saka does it on the other side as well, that can beat their man. Jesus, one of the best dribblers in the league, comfortably. When you've got players that can do that, you're just pulling apart, whether it's a man marking system, whether it's a low block. You're basically saying you can do all that. But if I get around the person that is set to do the job on me, it causes chaos, because then, it's, well, do I come across and deal with it? And then suddenly everyone's getting pulled out of position and he picks out White. And look, some people say he nearly missed it, but look, it's a good finish. I don't care, he put it to the back of the net.
I think we created an overload there on Ayling, to be fair. And I know Martinelli has to win that duel to get the cross in. But if you look at the role here, Zinchenko recognises he's got the overload. Sinistera hasn't really tracked back that well. And Zinchenko is slightly ahead of Sinistera when he gets the ball. He plays it to Martinelli, and then Ayling has to come across. So it created the 2v1 there. Ayling, he gets a bit lucky with the deflection of Ayling's foot before he delivers the cross. But I thought, once again, the key to unlocking Leeds was sort of either an overload on Ayling's side, or gaps between Ayling and Christensen, which were how Xhaka got his goal, or gaps between Ayling and Koch. So we exposed them in these sort of areas, and it came from overloads or players making late runs. And Benjamin White, that's now his second goal, 2 more than Richarlison now this season. We'd like to get that one in.
I was wondering where the Tottenham jokes were.
But yeah, he arrives really late, and it's movement again. To beat the man marking, he's made a late run into the box, and that's how we undid Leeds. That's the point I want to make today. It's like overloads and running off the ball into space created, and that's what we did really well in all our goals on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. The bigger picture is that our last 7 games have been an unbelievable response. I can't believe how quickly they've just come and gone since that Man City defeat. Man City defeat feels like 2-3 games ago, but we put 7 on the spin. I remember losing City and thinking, okay, there's one thing. I liken it to Newcastle in the Carabao Cup final. I think Arsenal always had this this game against City in their mind, like Newcastle did with that final. And then since they sort of out of the way, it's like, well, just get back to business now. And I looked at it and thought, at least there's an opportunity for 5-2 draws, 6 and a draw, 6 and a defeat. Something that resembles consistency. 7 on the bounce, though.
I can't emphasise, James, how crucial that victory at Aston Villa was. when you think about it, we'd lost the Man City game, Partey was missing in that game, Partey then missed the next 2 games, right? So obviously Jorginho coming did really well, and he ultimately, it was his shot that hit Martinez, went in and was pivotal in getting us over the line in that game. That Villa result was absolutely massive on the back of the Man City defeat. We've now scored 23 goals in 7 games since then.
4-1, 4-3-3, 4-4.
And we've been scoring like 3 goals in most of those games. Yeah, so those last 7 results, but I think the Villa result was absolutely pivotal in that run.
I completely agree. Now, you gave credit to Leeds for the way they started. You talked about their warm-up was brilliant. You talked about just how they started the game. And some people might even be asking the question, not saying we are, but some people might be asking the question about nerves for Arsenal. Is there something else as well as we're getting into that? Because we're not having the lightning starts that we were having at the beginning of the season. So I wanted to have a little look at these last 7 games. And look, I don't think these numbers, I don't think they're obvious proof of anything. But I just have a bit of a theory, and I noticed it at Fulham, I was at that game, that Arteta's told his teams to start a little bit differently. Now, what do I mean by that? When we look at Villa, Leicester, Everton, Bournemouth, we had 2 shots in the first 20 minutes against Villa, 4 against Leicester, 4 against Bournemouth. We faced 2 shots against Villa in the first 20. We faced 1 against Bournemouth. We even conceded against Villa and Bournemouth as well. Everton and Leicester slightly more accomplished. But I will say that I remember the Everton game feeling very open the first 20 minutes. You look at Bournemouth, some of the chances and openings they had. When you compare it to Fulham, Palace, Leeds, our shots go down. 2 shots against Leeds, fine, but only 1 in the first 20 minutes against Palace, none in the first 20 minutes against Fulham before we got the goal, though there was a disallowed goal. We only faced the 1 against Leeds, that came in the first few seconds, none after that, and we hadn't scored or conceded any goals in the first 20 minutes of the last 3 games. Now, my theory is that Bournemouth, I think, left a little bit of a scar in Arteta's mind, where he said, brilliant, love that, 97th minute winner, we all ran onto the pitch. That's not how you win titles.
No.
Maybe you need a few of those. Maybe that shows a mentality thing. But across 38 games, it can't be the norm that we go, hell for leather against the Bournemouths of this world and all that, with all due respect. I think when I watched that first 20 minutes against Fulham, I was watching it going, we're not playing badly. We're not playing brilliantly. But I think we're just easing into it. I think the plan is, let's just play our football. Let's suss out the opposition. Let's just get a foothold in the game. Let's let the opposition know you're not going to touch the ball very much. We're feeling confident. We're going to move around. If we don't have shots, at least we're keeping them moving. At least we're keeping them guessing. And then you raise the tempo. And I don't think it's any surprise that the goal against Fulham comes in the 21st minute. We end up 3-0 up at half-time in that game, despite how we started the first 20 minutes. It doesn't surprise me that against Palace, the floodgates then open and we start scoring goals after that 26th, 7th minute, whenever the goal came. And then against Leeds, it's a penalty in the end, but then we open up and start playing our football. I think Arteta has sent the players out with a message of containment a little bit in that first 20. We don't have to win it immediately. It's been great how electric we've been in starting games this season, but I think this is deliberate, personally. What do you think?
I think partly I agree with you. I think sometimes it doesn't click quite straight away. I thought watching the performance on Saturday, I didn't think it was clicking for us straight away. That was partly because of the way Leeds played, the way they tried to nullify our 3-2-5, with the way their midfielders man-marked us in key areas and congested other areas. They stopped us playing through the middle of the pitch. So I think sometimes it's not going to, particularly now as you move towards the back end of the season, into the run in of games towards the end of the season, there's more pressure on you for a start. I think the other thing that we had to face in these 7 games that you've mentioned, in the Villa and Leicester game, Thomas Partey was missing in that game. So that when you miss a key player like Thomas Partey, you've got to adjust to him. Jorginho come in and did fantastically well. But I noticed in those 2 games with Jorginho, he did a lot of great things, but he can't do what Partey does. And we were trying to figure out how to sort of like play with Jorginho in the team. So maybe the start would have been affected by that. And the last 2 performances against Palace and Leeds, where again we didn't start well in both games. And in the Palace game, I remember Zaha had an early chance where Ramsdale saved it off the post. In this Leeds game, where we weren't quite at it, or we weren't sort of clicking into gear early, that was to do with the way the opposition were playing. Sometimes you have to earn the right to play. Sometimes you have to be patient. And I think the thing is, what I think we have got very good players who eventually are going to find a way. And sometimes when you start games, you're sort of like probing the opposition. Sometimes the way you look at the opposition, the way you play against the opposition, sometimes tells you where you think their weaknesses are. And I think in the game on Saturday, I thought against Leeds, they were doing a really good job in the first half hour nullifying us. And again, we had no Saliba. That's the other point I want to make, and I'll come on to that in a minute. But we identified the weakness on their right-hand side, and then with Jesus and Martinelli, who I thought carried the team in the first half, we identified that weakness and started playing really well. I think in these 7 games, first 2 without Partey, the last 2 without Saliba, and I thought on Saturday we are adjusting to having Rob Holding in the team at centre-half. Holding, I think, has done really well in 2 games, but he's not William Saliba. And I think sometimes it only takes a slight change in your team to sometimes you have to adapt to that change. Sometimes that affects the way you start, maybe. And I think in these 7 games, that I think has affected the performances, with Partey mentioned in 2 and Saliba in 2. I also thought the way Bournemouth caught us out at the start of that game and scored very early, I think Arsenal now are more guarded at the start of games. That's the other point I want to make.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Let's talk about Gabriel Jesus. Took me a second there, sorry. Wow. Because you mentioned those 2 players, chaos in the first half, and I'm going to let you talk about Gabriel Jesus. What a player.
Well, do you want to read his numbers out first, then I'll go?
2 goals out of the 4 were scored by him. Didn't get an assist, but played 60 minutes of football. I thought that was the right amount, his first Premier League start. I know some people saying he's on a hat-trick. He probably would have got the hat-trick, but I think it was the right decision. 48 touches, 4 duels, 4 shots, 2 shots on target. Created a chance at an XG of 1.8. 4 take-ons as well, and I like this. 13 goals and assists this season, which isn't a bad return for a player who missed 3 months of the Premier League season. His all-time Premier League goals at 65. He's behind Firmino, who's on 70-something. You did tell me.
No, I think he's second for Brazilians. But Firmino's got 79. He's got 65. Firmino has got most goals of Brazilians who played the Premier League, but he's now on 65. Look, I thought he was a difference maker on Saturday, and it was so great to see him back in the team. Obviously, I was not happy with Saka not playing, although I thought the front 3 were really good. Trossard, Jesus and Martinelli, the interchange in the fluidity, they can all play in each other's spaces, and that's what those 3 players offer. You know, that's great to see. But I thought he was the difference maker. I think he offers absolute unpredictability, the way he plays. He's almost like the one unstructured player in our structured team. He can play 9, he can play 10, he can play out wide, he can beat a player on a dribble. He scares defenders. They just do not know how to play against him. And I thought that he made the difference on Saturday when we needed it after 34 minutes to win the penalty. And I thought there were just 2 moments in that game that summed him up for me. He was doing things that other players weren't doing when we were struggling to break them down. He was trying to sort of like get through holes. He'd go around 2 players and try and get through past the 3rd player. He'd be out wide. I noticed the ball, he took it out wide in his stride, just brought it down, and then interchange. He was moving into space. Yeah. He plays the game almost like with a boyish charm, a smile on his face. You don't see it. And for him, the game's all about infinite possibilities in the moment. Yeah, and right. I love that goal that he made for himself in the penalty spot, because if you watch it back, he's in the left half space. He gets into the box. Martinelli has now come central, and when he gets the ball, James, he's literally feigns to shoot, and Christensen falls on his arse straight away. That's the thing I love about it. But then he's got Alien in front of him, and Alien's thinking he's going to cross this, because he's going to cross it, and then he goes to the ground, and I think he sticks the leg out trying to block the cross, and he catches Jesus on the knee. He could have gone down at least on 2 occasions, because he was kicked, but he just scares defenders. He does things that, he's a bit like a street fighter, but South American, almost like a little Luis Suarez, isn't he? The way he sort of like does things you don't expect.
The chopping and changing
and movement is just so clever. And how do you stop a guy like that? And I think it's going to be really great for Arsenal that he's coming back now, and he looked fitter and sharper on Saturday. It's great we got him back now for the running. I
think he is superb. I absolutely love Gabriel Jesus. Another player that I just want to pick out is Martinelli, because between the World Cup and maybe him getting dropped against Villa, there were questions about his performances. He was still getting the odd goal. You think about Brighton, for example. But he came out with 69 touches, 5 take-ons, an assist, and 4 shots in the game. That was only some of the impressive stats that he put up. But what I liked about him was, we highlighted him beating Ayling and putting it into the box to Ben White. That was brilliant. But I just think he has looked, since Trossard's come in, actually, we talk about whether adding players. People say, well, is that going to affect their game time and their confidence? I think it can level up a player. And I think as well as having that competition, and my brother mentioned this, I know we've talked about it on Tactical Insight before, I think a Jesus Trossard number 9 suits him a lot better in terms of the interchanging, in terms of the movement, in terms of the combinations, more than Eddie Nketiah does, where he's got to supply more for Eddie than the other way around. And I just think he's been brilliant, really, really brilliant recently. And yeah, I'm delighted for him.
Yeah, what I liked on Saturday is he really stepped up. With Saka not in the team, he was the one who was like almost like playing the Saka role. He completed 4 dribbles on Saturday in the first half alone, more than any other player on the pitch, more I think than all the players combined on the pitch. And I think he really stepped up. And also, off the ball, there was an instant in the first half where Leeds were looking dangerous in 1 or 2 transitions. He literally sprinted back about 20 yards, got a tackle in to stop them building an attack on their right-hand side to make a really good ball recovery. His work rate off the ball on Saturday was superb. And he was the one instrumental on that left-hand side with Jesus eventually in unlocking Leeds in that gap between Ayling and Christensen.
I agree. Speaking of work rate, I just want to bring up, I don't want to, you want to, it's your stats, Odegaard and De Bruyne. And some of the stats are really impressive. I think you said he's played about 300 minutes.
No, 2,000. I think Odegaard's played 2,400 minutes and I think De Bruyne 2,100 minutes. I think there's about 3 hours, 4 or 5 games less they play. But these stats, James, are very interesting, aren't they?
They are. I mean, 17 goals and assists to De Bruyne's 18, 10 goals to De Bruyne's 5, 7 to De Bruyne's 13, 76 shots to De Bruyne's 58, 64 chances created to De Bruyne's 83. I mean, look, it's kind of one steps up in one and one steps up in the other. 38 take-ons to De Bruyne's 25, but this is the big one. 146 ball recoveries to De Bruyne's 79. His work rate's massive, and I think what maybe goes a little under the radar is, yes, we play a 4-3-3, yes, we interchange a 3-2-5, all that, but actually I think when we don't have the ball, when we're pressing, it's very 4-4-2. Odegaard really presses sometimes as high as the striker, and so he can lead the press sometimes. He can be the orchestrator of that.
I don't think De Bruyne can do off the ball what Odegaard does, because he's obviously older, but these are the 2 key players, James, in our 2 teams, aren't they? Man City v Arsenal. The 2 key players going, these are head-to-head stats, and these are the 2 key players who I think who are pivotal to their 2 teams' chances. Obviously, City talk about Haaland, and they found a way without Haaland on Saturday, we know. But these are the 2 key players. Odegaard, I just think he's been absolutely incredible this year. 10 goals from midfield.
And sorry to cut you, I actually didn't think this was his best performance either. I thought he was fine.
I thought it was a captain's performance.
I'll give him a 6 or a 7.
Me and you always have arguments about
that. That's true. But his assist for Xhaka was unbelievable.
Well, that was an unbelievable pass. That was because again, it was a sort of, as we were talking about earlier, Xhaka literally makes a run from deep to get between Christensen and Ayling. But it's Odegaard's pass, the awareness and the actual delivery was world class.
I completely agree. Now somewhere I've got here, Odegaard's pressing. Now credit to Opta for this graphic. Arteta and Odegaard, possession 1 in the final third. I believe this is in the lead. Is this in the Leeds game or in the Premier League? I think it's Premier League. Yeah, in the Premier League. Well, there you go. But 40 times he's won possession in the final third. And you can see how often he's doing his work here. It's massive for Arsenal.
Yeah, his work rate is all season. And when we sometimes drop back into a 4-4-2, he's the one leading the press from the front. His work rate off the ball, I think, is absolutely phenomenal. He just does not stop working. And when you add that to his talent, we just got the complete player. And a lot of people question whether he should be captain of this team. He leads by example on the pitch, and also leads by example the way, even after games, he's always the last person off that pitch. We clap the team off. He's always the last person that goes round each side, clapping each side. He's a fantastic ambassador for Arsenal Football Club and a great player. I agree. Now we're going to go into the roundup stats, but very quickly before we do, why can't I find the 11s? Here we are. I just want to ask you from this 11. I knew you were going to do this. Had to be done. We don't have a tactical insight preview show. Ask Maybe me to pick my team for Liverpool away, aren't you? I just want to know what you changed. Wow. You know, I hate you putting me in this position. Well, I'm going to put myself in it first. No, yeah. Go on then. That's what I'd do. I think he'll be fine. I think Saliba plays at Anfield personally. Yeah. Do you agree? I think if he's at 90% fit, they play him. I think they're going to manage him. He's going to come in. I think it's crucial he plays. Do you know what I was thinking the other day? You know the way Tomiyasu took care of Salah up at the Emirates? Wouldn't it have been useful to have Tomiyasu back there? He's not available, of course, but that's the more reason why I think Saliba is key, that he comes in and we have that sort of spine of Saliba, Partey and Jesus. Now, I've got to ask about this guy, Bukayo Saka, but for who? Because, I mean, look at that assist that Trossard got. Wow. He's a brilliant player. Do you know what? How do you actually drop anyone from this team up high? They also, if you look at the five, Martinelli got an assist, Jesse got 2 goals, Trossard got an assist, Odegaard got an assist, and Xhaka scored a goal. The whole of the 5 attacking players either scored, assisted, a goal contribution on Saturday. I just think Trossard's been absolutely immense. He's 8 assists since he's come in at Arsenal. Only De Bruyne has got more assists since he's been at Arsenal. He's now scored 7 goals and 7 assists in the Premier League this season. He's absolutely level with Marcus Rashford, who everybody dotes on in those numbers. He's been phenomenal. 7 assists in the Premier League. 7 assists in the last 6 games, is it? Some ridiculous numbers. Yeah. How can you leave him out? But then how can you leave out?
I'll tell you how. And it is Trossard I'm leaving out. And I know his record at Anfield, he got the hat-trick earlier in the season. But here's my reasoning. If I'm Mikel Arteta, what a pleasure that would be. And I had the opportunity to sit with Trossard and explain my thinking. I'd position it as, it's nothing to do with the way you're playing. No. It's nothing to do with, and we know what you can do at Anfield. But he did that in a different team, Brighton, that would have approached it a different way. I think Liverpool are, when you look at the goals they conceded against City, they can be pulled apart. They want to press, they want to follow you around the pitch. And I think the players in that team that can expose that more than anyone in terms of raw pace, drive, the dribbling they've got, their unpredictability, is this front 3. Now Trossard, he can dribble. He can sort of spin one way. Look at the goals he scored at Anfield earlier this season. But I don't think he is naturally a player that pierces through that Liverpool back line when it is getting pulled apart, that spins and wins free kicks and all that as much as these 3. It is purely just a preference thing for what I think will cause Liverpool the most problems. I love Trossard. Who are we playing after that? It's West Ham. That might be more of a game for Trossard because they will sit low, they'll sit a bit deeper. There might be a little bit more picking a lock and doing something unpredictable, maybe goal from distance, that kind of thing. Assists. That's where I think maybe Trossard does the job. But I think for Anfield and that Liverpool defence, that is the front 3 for me.
It's a lovely problem for Mikel Arteta to have.
Brilliant.
But I agree with you. This will be my starting 11 as well. If Saliba's close to fitness, I will play him, and I will bring Saka back into the team. Trossard has been absolutely brilliant. He's not being dropped. He's being rotated. I think Sharoy, who I spoke to Saturday, made a great point. He's not being dropped. He's being rotated, and I think that would be our strongest side to go to Liverpool. This is the side that for most of the season has got us to the top of the league. Yeah. Trossard has been unbelievable since he come in, that low sense of gravity, his clever movement off the ball, assist king, whatever you want to say about him. He's been the 21 million, what a steal. A lot of people are going to say he needs to stay in the team, but I do think, I agree with you, Saka is going to obviously give Robinson, you're going to stop Robinson getting forward a lot if you've got Saka on that right-hand side, and Saka's they're going to double up on him obviously, but he's the key on the right-hand side. But, the gap that we saw at Man City, the gap between Van Dijk and was it Van Dijk on the right hand side or the left hand side?
No, it was Konate.
The gap between Konate and Trent is an area where I think Martinelli could have some joy, and also Zinchenko and Xhaka could have some joy. So we've got sort of areas we can hurt them. They are still a very strong side Liverpool. They've got the worst away record in the league, bar Southampton. But at home they're a different beast. They will want to come back strong after their poor performance against Man City. So I'm not underestimating this. Our record at Anfield is absolutely awful. I think the last time we won there in the league was when Cazorla scored back in 2012. That's how long ago that is.
Arteta started in that midfield.
Arteta started. So, but I think this is the 11. I think that gives us the best chance of beating them at Anfield next week.
Completely agree. Let's go into the roundup stats.
Thank you, James. The roundup stats then, guys, for this week. Arsenal retained their 8-point lead over City in the race for the Premier League title with victory over Leeds. Their 23rd win in their 29th match puts them only 3 wins behind the Invincibles' 26 wins in season 2003-2004. Do you know that?
Wow. I mean, it's one of those things I did, but I didn't know it.
They had 26 wins, 12 draws. Yeah. This team has got 23 wins in 29 games already.
That's unbelievable.
Incredible, isn't it? Arsenal have now scored in 27 of their 29 Premier League games this season, more than any other side. Only against 2 teams have they failed to find the next season. Can you remember who they are?
Yes, I can. Hold on. Newcastle.
Yeah, at home, 0-0.
Wait, don't tell me I do know.
An away defeat. Think of an away defeat.
Everton.
Everton, yeah, 1-0 Everton. Bukayo Saka, here's an interesting stat for you. Bukayo Saka didn't start an Arsenal game for the first time in 485 days. The last game he didn't start was the 3-2 defeat away at Manchester United in the Premier League last season. Benjamin White, as we said, now has 2 Premier League goals. That's 2 more Premier League goals than the poor, hapless Richarlison, who's still stuck on 0. He has 1 more than Weghorst at Man United, who has 1, Vardy, who has 1, and Aubameyang, who has 1 at Chelsea.
There you go.
In the week that was in which Arsenal's greatest ever manager, Arsene Wenger, was inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame, along with Sir Alex Ferguson. Congratulations to Wenger for that, of course. It is worth noting that even though Alex Ferguson has been retired for almost 10 years, he's still won more Premier League matches than Tottenham Hotspur. Ferguson has 528 Premier League wins. Trophyless Spurs only had 517. And overall, the most wins by clubs in the Premier League history now stand 718 Man United up front. Arsenal now on 642. Chelsea 628. That's wins, not managers sacked. And Liverpool on 621. And finally, James, I just want to end on this today, because I think it's a really nice way to end the show. Before Saturday's game, both Arsenal and Leeds, 2 of the clubs that he represented, honoured David Rocky Rocastle, who passed away 22 years ago last month. Rocky played 218 games for Arsenal, starring in 2 league title-winning sides, 1988-89 and 1990-91, scoring 24 goals for the club. One of his most famous was at White Hart Lane that helped Arsenal beat Tottenham in the 1987 League Cup semi-final replay and sent Arsenal to Wembley, where they beat Liverpool to lift the cup. The David Rocastle Indoor Centre at the club's academy is named in his honour. Arsene Wenger, who arrived 4 years after he left for Leeds, described him as a modern player of technique and skill, ahead of his time, and as having an exceptional dimension as a footballer. To hear his name sung at Saturday's game brought a lump to my throat, I have to say, and was testament not just to his brilliance as a footballer, but the iconic and legendary way that he's held in the Gunners' fans' hearts. The biggest tribute you could play Rocky is that he was that good he could have fitted perfectly into the beautiful way this Arsenal team have played football this season, and if he was still alive, he would have loved watching the young Arsenal players like Bukayo Saka, who have followed him through the academy, playing in the way that he loved to play the beautiful game.
Oh, a round of applause. That might be, in fact, that is the greatest roundup stats you've ever delivered.
Thank you.
You've made me laugh, you've made me teary, you've done it all. But I echo everything you have said. Everyone, a big thank you for joining us on the Tactical Insight Show. If you've made it this far, please hit the like button. Subscribe to AFTV for all the fallout from the Liverpool game. Not the Liverpool game, that's to come. From the Leeds game, I'm mixing my L's.
We don't want any fallout from the Liverpool game, mate.
We don't. We'll wait for that till next week.
Stay positive, stay positive.
And Liverpool, of course, this weekend we will be previewing it, and everything that's happening in the world of Arsenal we will be discussing here on AFTV. So big thank you to everyone who's joined us. And yes, well done Arsenal. Liverpool it is. What would your 11 be? Let us know in the comments. We'll see you very soon.
Shop for AFTV merch at shop.aftv.co.uk. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat and Twitch. We've got content for every platform, so check it out.